Hello, I'm Fred Spaulding, and I'm here to take you through my exhibition called Since We Last Met here at the Northwest Campus, Tarrant County College. So, where we are right now is on the third floor of the NWO1 building, and we are in the wing that's to the southwest, and that's where the show is installed. If you are starting at the elevators right here, and then proceeding into the space, you're starting to see the first of the pieces in the exhibition. And all the pieces in this exhibition are assemblage pieces made of multiple parts that could be taken apart and reconfigured. And some of them have been taken apart and reconfigured over the last 30 years. So what we have is some pedestal-based assemblages. These are more recent pieces that are based on ceramic vessels. You can see this one right here is a slab-built vessel with some coils on top and other objects attached to it. This larger piece, floor-standing brick piece, is a part of a series I've been working on for a long time of bricks that have been put together with straps. They're also fired, and some of them have images screen printed on them. So here's another vessel-based assemblage. So we're still at the north end of the gallery, and now I'm going to proceed and move south and look at some of the various other pieces in the show. So as we move into the space, I just want to kind of step back and give you an overview of the overall space. And I'm going to zoom down the space all the way to the other end so that you can see that there's another large stack kind of waving at us from the south end. And really, the overall exhibition is intended to be an assemblage in and of itself to try and unify this space. All right, so now I'm going to proceed to this first wall-based assemblage. This is a clay piece made up of many multiple parts. I'm going to come in close to it, and then I'm going to give you a little contour view of the surface. You're going to see some broken bricks that came out of those other large-scale assemblages. And then I'll step back and you can take another look at the overall piece. This is a piece called Splash. So the next piece is a table-based assemblage. And these are some recent vessel pieces made from micaceous clay and barrel fired. And then I also did some work with wax on them to glaze them in a little bit of a non-traditional way. So all these pieces were pinched formed out of single pieces of micaceous clay. There are a few pieces in here that are thrown on the wheel too, like this one. And so I started to use string and wire to attach other parts and explore the potential of these barrel-fired pieces, and also the potential for the encaustic process, wax melting, to change the color of those pieces. This one's kind of waving at us like a flag. All right, as we proceed further on, we're going to reach this Advocate, Collaborate, Create piece. And this is a collaboration of everyone in the space. And I'm just going to zoom in here and you can see a few things that people have put on the wall to advocate for them. This wall is curated to a certain degree to where additions that are hateful or sort of inappropriate in some way have been covered over with other additions. So it's not entirely a uncurated view of the space or of the people in the space, but it is largely uncurated. So as we proceed further south into the space, I want to talk a little bit about this piece right here. This was one of the first vessel-based assemblages, and it's incorporating a set of squeezed loop shapes in clay that are all put together with zip ties, and also there's some other shapes that have been tied on with string. And this piece was really important in the sense that it was one of the first vessel-based assemblages that I started working on during this sabbatical period, because it really lent itself to it. I had made that green shape, and you can see it has this kind of lattice structure on top of it, and so it really lent itself to strapping more items on top. So as we go further on down, we have this iron loop wall right here. These loops were cast at the Kohler Company in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And I've got a couple of dozen of them, and I was really intending when I first came in here to do a larger tangle piece similar to that one that we just saw on top of that vessel. But then as I started to put them on the wall, was really enjoying the pieces with a little space around them. So I went ahead and assembled this wall of only 7 pieces with more space in between. And I think they really interact nicely with the shadows, especially in the evening in this space. So the shadows create a drawing on the wall that interacts visually with the actual iron loop. It's really more apparent in the evening time. So if we turn from this wall, opposite we have this landscape with paper clouds. And this piece is made up of cut metal, flat shapes, and torn printed clouds that are assembled together from multiple parts. So if we go in closely, you can see how they're joined together. They're really just overlapped. So for example, right here, you can see the overlapping part where one connects to another, and they're put on the wall with magnets. And up above you have the paper clouds floating above the metal landscape. So the shapes in this landscape with clouds originated as closed shapes that I made based on the time and place where I was. I made 1,000 of these drawings, and so these are a selection of the shapes cut into metal and then also made into paper prints by using plastic plates of the shapes. All right, so moving on through, we've got a couple of more vessel-based assemblages. This is really a set of 3. So we'll see those. I've become interested in this idea of using wire to create floating shapes around the vessel. So that's something that I'm looking forward to experimenting with a little bit more. Some of these objects came from a trip to Maine, like this buoy right here, where it's a part of a buoy. And then there's a piece of bark with some driftwood floating up above. Here's another piece that had a lattice structure on top. Looks more of like an abstract sort of head shape. And to me, this head shape is kind of interesting because it's almost like referring to something going on inside of the head. So turning from this, you're going to see a wall of collages. And collage is sort of a close relative to assemblage. It's in a flat format. So I'll go in and have a look at one of these. So this one's made up of many little pieces of paper attached onto a transparency, which is also floating above a sort of gestural scribble drawing. And that's one of the themes that you'll see through these pieces right here, is this idea of connecting the shapes with this idea of gesture and just a free movement of the hand. And you might say, well, I've seen my child do that. And I think those child drawings are really wonderful expressions of just a physical movement of a body in space. So here's a few of these as we move along. You can see the paper with the transparency and the gestural drawings. Okay, so moving on past those, we're getting down to the south end of the space, and you can see this large structure that's kind of waving back at that one from the north end. And on the left side, we have this wall of really more individual wall assemblages that are put together on hooks. So I'm just going to come in and select this one to take a look at. This one has a clay loop from another set of parts combined with some other ceramic pieces, different test pieces, and a red reflector. So as we sort of take a quick look at these, you'll notice that I'm taking parts from the paper series and the metal series and the clay loop series and even the barrel-fired vessel series, and I'm just experimenting with them to see what they'll look like in a composition together. Now this last piece on the wall was really based on this drawing that Trish Igo gave me of bricks strapped together in a more linear way. And of course, when I saw that, I thought, wow, that's really a different way of looking at putting the bricks together. And I thought, what would that look like if I took the band and connected the broken bricks with it? And so I was really excited to see how that form was going to develop. There's another smaller one over here. And I'm excited to see how long this band could get and how it could explore the space with just a few solid shapes holding it at the bottom. So again, here we are at the south end, and there's another, this is the other large brick structure. We also have a base form here at the very south end with a brick strapped onto it. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of zoom back down the space and get back to where we started so we can see how those two pieces kind of communicate across this space. All right, so that's an overview of the overall exhibition. What I'd like to say too in conclusion is just this idea about assemblage and how, in a way, our lives, our minds, our worlds are constructed assemblages, and we can take them apart and we can reassemble them in different ways and maybe find ways that are more productive and more healthy for our society. So the idea of experimenting with the parts, experimenting with the assemblage units, I think is something that could be useful in terms of figuring out various different questions that we have about our society and about our lives. So I hope that you can benefit from this exhibition and also just enjoy it visually. Thank you for taking time to watch this video.